What more is to be done? Monks, you should train thus. We will be devoted to wakefulness, Jagarya Yoga. During the day, while walking back and forth and sitting, we will purify our minds of obstructive states. In the first watch of the night, while walking back and forth and sitting, we will purify our minds of obstructive states. In the middle watch of the night, we will lie down on the right side in the lion's pose with one foot overlapping the other, mindful and fully aware, after noting in our minds the time for rising. After rising in the third watch of the night, while walking back and forth and sitting, we will purify our minds of obstructive states. Now monks, you may think thus, we are possessed of shame and fear of wrongdoing. Our bodily conduct, verbal conduct, mental conduct and livelihood have been purified. We guard the doors of our sense faculties. We are moderate in eating and we are devoted to wakefulness. That much is enough and you may rest content with that much. Monks, I inform you, I declare to you, you who seek the recluse's status, do not fall short of the goal of recluseship, while there is more to be done. Stop here for a moment. So here, devotion to wakefulness among during the day, he walks back and forth and sits and purify the mind of obstructive states. That means a monk is supposed to practice meditation, either sitting or walking meditation throughout the day. So not to put your attention on the 6 sense objects, including thinking. If we talk, and we also think, we also use our mind in the wrong way. So monks are supposed to only practice meditation throughout the day. The first watch of the night refers to night is the night is from 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. and that is broken into 3 watches of 4 hours each. The first watch is from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. The middle watch or second watch is from 10 p.m. until 2 a.m. and then the third is from 2 until 6 a.m. So in the middle watch, monk is supposed to take his rest from 10 until 2. In Malaysian time, it would probably be from 11 until 3, because our time is faster by 1 hour compared to Thailand. So in the middle watch, it says here, lie down also, you're supposed to practice. Here it says mindful and fully aware. Actually, the Pali word is sati sampajanya. We still practice sati sampajanya. Sati is recollecting your meditation object. For example, if you are doing the 32 parts of the body, even you lie down to sleep also, you're supposed to keep awake by chanting the 32 parts of the body. And fully aware means maintain your wakefulness, which is hard to do for a normal mind, which is not strong enough. It's very difficult to maintain your wakefulness throughout the night and the day. But that is the Buddha standard. So here, Buddha standard, you see, is only resting for 4 hours in a day. And also to be aware during those 4 hours. And also you note the time 10 p.m. until 2 a.m. Now medical research says that is the time our body and our organs shut off. Our organs tend to shut off. That's the time to take a rest. So there are some people like drug addicts. They stay awake throughout the night. They are stressing the body. And that is not the right time to stay awake. That's the right time to take a rest during the middle watch. So you see here, a monk is supposed to strive to maintain this meditation, this wakefulness throughout the day and throughout the night. What more is to be done? Monks, you should train thus. We will be possessed of recollection and full awareness, We will act in full awareness when going forward and returning. We will act in full awareness when looking ahead and looking away. We will act in full awareness when flexing and extending our limbs. We will act in full awareness when wearing our robes and carrying our outer bowl and robe. We will act in full awareness when eating, drinking, consuming food and tasting. We will act in full awareness when defecating and urinating. We will act in full awareness when walking, standing, sitting, falling asleep, waking up, talking and keeping silent. Now monks, you may think thus, we are possessed of shame and fear of wrongdoing. Our bodily conduct, verbal conduct, mental conduct and livelihood have been purified. We guard the doors of our sense faculties. We are moderate in eating. We are devoted to wakefulness. And we are possessed of mindfulness and full awareness. That much is enough. That much has been done. The goal of recluseship has been reached. There is nothing more for us to do. And may rest content with that much. Monks, I inform you, I declare to you, you who seek the reclusive status, do not fall short of the goal of recluseship, while there is more to be done. Let's stop here for a moment. So here, although the translation is mindfulness and full awareness, actually sati sampajanya, recollection and full awareness or mindfulness. Whatever we do, we are fully aware. And also, although here it doesn't say so, you're also supposed to maintain your recollection of your meditation object. What more is to be done? Here a monk resorts to a secluded resting place, the forest, the root of a tree, a mountain, a ravine, a hillside cave, a charnel ground, a jungle thicket, an open space, a heap of straw. I'll stop here for a moment. So we see here, seclusion for a monk is very important. It's part of the monk's practice. Here, what is listed here in this sutta is all practice of a monk, charana, or conduct of a monk. When you compare this with the earlier list we saw, we find here we have this moderation in eating, which was not in the earlier sutta we read, and also devotion to wakefulness. But that was something I mentioned the other day. So it is a combination of these suttas. We collect all these factors of charana, conduct. So that's how we came up with 10 factors. Where somebody like Lady Sayadaw, I think he collected only based on 1 or 2 suttas, he came up with only 7 or 8 factors. So, on returning from his alms round after his meal, he sits down, folding his legs crosswise, setting his body erect, and establishing mindfulness before him. Abandoning covetousness for the world, he abides with the mind free from covetousness. He purifies his mind from covetousness. Abandoning ill will and hatred, he abides with the mind free from ill will, compassionate for the welfare of all living beings. He purifies his mind from ill will and hatred. Abandoning sloth and torpor, he abides free from sloth and torpor, percipient of light, mindful and fully aware. He purifies his mind from sloth and torpor. Abandoning restlessness and remorse, he abides unagitated, with the mind inwardly peaceful. He purifies his mind from restlessness and remorse. Abandoning doubt, he abides having gone beyond doubt, unperplexed about wholesome states. He purifies his mind from doubt. Stop here for a moment. So here is a description of the abandonment of the hindrances. As I mentioned before, when you look at abandoning sloth and torpor, he abides free from sloth and torpor, percipient of light. So light wells up from within him when he abandons sloth and torpor. Monks, suppose a man were to take a loan and undertake business, and his business were to succeed so that he could repay all the money of the old loan, and there would remain enough extra to maintain a wife. Then, on considering this, he would be glad and full of joy. Or suppose a man were afflicted suffering and gravely ill, and his food would not agree with him, and his body had no strength. But later he would recover from the affliction, and his food would agree with him, and his body would regain strength. Then, considering this, he would be glad and full of joy. Or suppose a man were imprisoned in a prison house, but later he would be released from prison, safe and secure, with no loss to his property. Then, on considering this, he would be glad and full of joy. Or suppose a man were a slave, not self-dependent, but dependent on others, unable to go where he wants. But later on, he would be released from slavery, self-dependent, independent of others, a free man, able to go where he wants. Then, on considering this, he would be glad and full of joy. Or suppose a man with wealth and property were to enter a road across a desert, but later on he would cross over the desert, safe and secure, with no loss to his property. Then, on considering this, he would be glad and full of joy. So too monks, when these 5 hindrances are unabandoned in himself, a monk sees them respectively as a death, a disease, a prison house, slavery, and a road across a desert. But when these 5 hindrances have been abandoned in himself, he sees them as freedom from death, healthiness, release from prison, freedom from slavery, and a land of safety. I'll stop here for a moment. So from this description of abandoning the hindrances, the similes given here are quite clear that the abandonment of the hindrances are permanent. It's not like what some people say, that you only abandon the hindrances when you are in jhana. But when you come out of jhana, they come back. But here you see the description, it's like he's freed from death. Free from death means he's permanently free from death. It's not just for 5 minutes, he's free from death. He's healthy, no more sick. He's released from prison. He's released from slavery. He's crossed to the land of safety. All this indicates that this abandonment of the hindrances are quite permanent. Although, of course, you could say that if a person is free from death, later he can still get into death. Or he's released from prison, later he can be still put into prison. That's not likely. Having abandoned these 5 hindrances, imperfections of the mind that weaken wisdom, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, he enters upon and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, with delight and pleasure born of seclusion. He makes the rapture and pleasure born of seclusion drench, steep, fill and pervade this body, so that there is no part of his whole body unpervaded by the delight and pleasure born of seclusion. Just as a skilled bathman or a bathman's apprentice heaps bath powder in a metal basin and sprinkling it gradually with water, kneads it until the moisture wets his ball of bath powder, soaks it, and pervades it inside and out, yet the ball itself does not ooze. So too, a monk makes the delight and pleasure born of seclusion drench, steep, fill and pervade this body, so that there is no part of this whole body unpervaded by the delight and pleasure born of seclusion. Stop here for a moment. Here this description is quite important and quite instructive for a monk in practicing meditation, because here he says after a monk attains the first jhana, he's supposed to make that delight and pleasure fill his whole body. Fill his whole body. In other words, he's aware of his body. Whereas initially when a monk meditates, as he gets into his mind, he might not be aware of the body. But in this case, after he attains the first jhana, this is the Buddha's instruction, is to make him pervade the body with delight and pleasure. So he has to become aware of his body and pervade it. So this is one thing. Actually, it is only in the arupas or arupa jhana that the five senses close, not in rupa jhana. Again, monks, with the stilling of applied and sustained thought, a monk enters upon and abides in the second jhana, which has self-confidence and singleness of mind, without applied and sustained thought. With delight and pleasure born of concentration, he makes the delight and pleasure born of concentration drench, steep, fill and pervade his body, so that there is no part of his whole body unpervaded by the delight and pleasure born of concentration. Just as though there were a lake whose waters welled up from below, and it had no inflow from east, west, north or south, and would not be replenished from time to time by showers of rain. Then the cool fount of water welling up in the lake would make the cool water drench, steep, fill and pervade the lake, so that there is no part of the whole lake unpervaded by cool water. So too a monk makes the delight and pleasure born of concentration drench, steep, fill and pervade his body, so that there is no part of his whole body unpervaded by the delight and pleasure born of concentration. Stop here for a moment. So here again, this simile shows that the monk is supposed to use his will so that this piti and sukha will pervade the body. In the first jhana, he has to make more effort, just like the man has got to knead the ball of soap, bath powder, knead with his hand and make it pervade, the moisture pervade the bath powder. So in the same way, this monk has to make more effort in the first jhana. But in the second jhana, although he still uses his will, but it would seem from the simile that it is easier, because just like the water, the cool water rises up from the bottom, wells up from below. So in the same way, his delight and pleasure wells up from below him and pervade the body. But still you notice that he has to use the will. This is a strong contrast to the Visuddhimagga description of jhana. In the Visuddhimagga description of jhana, seems like you are not in control of your, you cannot think at all, and you cannot use your will or so. So you have to be very careful. Sometimes if you don't investigate the suttas enough, you don't see the contradiction between the suttas and later books like the Visuddhimagga. Again, monks, with the fading away as well of delight, a monk abides in equanimity, mindful and fully aware, still feeling pleasure with the body. He enters upon and abides in the third jhana, on account of which noble ones, Aryans, announce, he has a pleasant abiding who has equanimity and is mindful. He makes the pleasure divested of delight, drench, steep, fill and pervade this body, so that there is no part of his whole body unpervaded by the pleasure divested of delight. Just as in a pond of blue or red or white lotuses, some lotuses that are born and grow in the water thrive immersed in the water without rising out of it, and cool water drenches, steeps, fills and pervades them to their tips and their roots, so that there is no part of all those lotuses unpervaded by cool water. So too a monk makes the pleasure divested of delight drench, steep, fill and pervade this body, so that there is no part of his whole body unpervaded by the pleasure divested of delight. Again, monks, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous disappearance of joy and grief, a monk enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure, and purity of mindfulness, or complete purity of recollection and equanimity, complete purity of sati and upekkha, recollection and equanimity. He sits pervading this body with a pure, bright mind, so that there is no part of his whole body unpervaded by the pure, bright mind. Just as though a man was sitting covered from the head down with a white cloth, so that there would be no part of his whole body unpervaded by the white cloth, so too a monk sits pervading this body with a pure, bright mind, so that there is no part of his whole body unpervaded by the pure, bright mind. Stop here for a moment. So you see, initially, when a monk attains the elimination of sloth and torpor, he's percipient of light. This sloth and torpor is a darkness in the mind. So when he gets rid of the this sloth and torpor, this light arises. But in the fourth jhana, this light is so strong that it pervades the whole body. His whole body is bright. When his concentrated mind is thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs it to the knowledge of the recollection of past lives. Stop here for a moment. So you see here, this description of the mind as being purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, refers to the fourth jhana. Only when a person attains the fourth jhana, then the mind becomes so purified, bright, and wieldy. That means can be used, malleable, can be used in whatever direction the meditator wants. So here he directs that mind to the knowledge of the recollection of past lives. And he recollects his manifold past lives, that is 1 birth, 2 births, 3, etc., thousands and aeons of world cycles. Thus, with the aspects and particulars, he recollects his manifold past life. Just as a man might go from his own village to another village, and then back again to his own village. He might think, I went from my own village to that village, and there I stood in such a way, sat in such a way, spoke in such a way, kept silent in such a way. And from that village I went to another village, and there I stood in such a way, sat in such a way, spoke in such a way, kept silent in such a way. And then from that village I came back again to my own village. So too, a monk recollects his manifold past lives. Thus, with the aspects and particulars, he recollects his manifold past lives. When his concentrated mind is thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs it to the knowledge of the passing away and reappearance of beings. Thus, with the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, he sees beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate, and he understands how beings pass on according to their actions. Just as though there were 2 houses with doors, and a man with good sight standing there between them saw people entering the houses and coming out and passing to and fro. So too, with the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, a monk sees beings passing away and reappearing, and he understands how beings pass on according to their actions or karma. When his concentrated mind is thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs it to the knowledge of the destruction of the taints. He understands as it actually is. This is suffering, this is the origin of suffering, this is cessation of suffering, this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. These are taints, this is the origin of the taints, this is the cessation of the taints, this is the way leading to the cessation of the taints. When he knows and sees thus, his mind is liberated from the taint of sensual desire, from the taint of being, and from the taint of ignorance. When it is liberated, there comes the knowledge it is liberated. He understands, birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more coming to any state of being. Just as if there were a lake in a mountain recess, clear, limpid, and undisturbed, so that a man with good sight, standing on the bank, could see shells, gravels, and pebbles, and also shoals of fish swimming about and resting. He might think, there is this lake, clear, limpid, and undisturbed, and there are these shells, gravels, and pebbles, and also these shoals of fish swimming about and resting. So too a monk understands that this actually is. This is suffering, is the origin of suffering, etc. He understands birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done, there is no more coming to any state of being. Monks, A monk such as this is called a recluse, a brahmana, a holy man, one who has been washed, one who has attained to knowledge, a holy scholar, a noble one, an arahant. Stop here for a moment. Here, a monk has finished his work. He is really a samana, a recluse, a brahmana, holy man, one who has been washed. In the Indian tradition, when a disciple finishes the training, then he undergoes a ceremonial bath. So he is bathed. That's why here it says one who has been washed. That means he has completed his training of the holy life. One is attained to knowledge. A holy scholar. Holy scholar is one who has the holy knowledge. The holy knowledges. A noble one, an arahant. And how is a monk a recluse? He has quieted down evil, unwholesome states that defile, bring renewal of being, give trouble, ripen in suffering, and lead to future birth, aging, and death. That is how a monk is a recluse. And how is a monk a brahmana? He has expelled evil, unwholesome states that defile, and lead to future birth, aging, and death. That is how a monk is a brahmana. And how is a monk one who has been washed? He has washed off evil, unwholesome states that defile, and lead to future birth, aging, and death. That is how a monk is one who has been washed. And how is a monk one who has attained to knowledge? He has known evil, unwholesome states that defile, and lead to future birth, aging, and death. That is how a monk is one who has attained to knowledge. And how is a monk a holy scholar? The evil, unwholesome states that defile, and lead to future birth, aging, and death have been streamed away from him. That is how a monk is a holy scholar. And how is a monk a noble one? Evil, unwholesome states that defile and lead to future birth, aging, and death are far away from him. That is how a monk is a noble one. And how is a monk an arahant? Evil, unwholesome states that defile, bring renewal of being, give trouble, ripen in suffering, and lead to future birth, aging, and death are far away from him. That is how a monk is an arahant. That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. This is the end of the sutta.